Have you ever wondered why some women seem to move through the world as if the shadows bend toward them, not to harm, but to serve? It's as though the darkest corners of a man's heart look up when she enters, recognizing something ancient, something capable of holding what no one else dares even to glance at. It is not beauty that keeps his gaze. It's not charm. It's not even passion. It's understanding. The woman who understands his darkness owns his desire, not through possession, but through presence. She stands where others retreat. She listens where others try to fix. She sees, and still she stays rooted in her own light. In Jungian terms, this woman has met her own shadow. She has gone down to the underworld of her psyche and walked through its caverns with open eyes. She no longer fears the disowned parts of herself, her rage, her envy, her longing, her pain. She has sat with them until they became wisdom. She doesn't project them onto others, she integrates them. And it's that integration, that subtle sovereignty of soul, that awakens something profound in the men who encounter her, because a man lives divided, his light and darkness fighting for command. He builds his ego like a fortress, protecting himself from the soft animal cries within. He believes he must be powerful, controlled, rational. But beneath that armor lives his shadow, the untamed. The vulnerable, the frightened, the passionate. The parts he learned to bury when the world told him to be strong. When that buried energy meets a woman who has met her own inner chaos, he feels suddenly safe to breathe. Her understanding does not coddle, it liberates. You see, in Jung's world, every person carries both the anima and the animus, the inner masculine and feminine energies that long for union. A man's anima, the inner feminine, whispers to him in dreams, in emotion, in longing for wholeness. Yet he may fear her voice, because to listen means to soften. The woman who understands his darkness mirrors his anima. Not as a caretaker, but as an archetype of truth. She shows him, without words, that emotion is not weakness. That vulnerability is not loss of power, and that desire itself can be sacred if it's touched by consciousness. She does not save him. She does not mother him. She simply beholds him without flinching. That is her power, in a world where so many people relate through projection, each trying to mold the other into an image of their unmet needs. The rarest connection is born when one simply sees. The woman who sees the man not for who he performs to be, but for who he truly is, brings him into confrontation with himself. The moment he feels seen in his chaos, something begins to unravel. The ego can no longer maintain its old story. He is forced to face what he has hidden. Attraction rooted in that truth shakes him. It's not about surface chemistry but about soul recognition. Think of it, every man secretly longs to be witnessed beyond his defenses. But the paradox is that his very defenses were built to keep himself from being seen. The woman who understands darkness does not fight those walls, she moves around them like water. Her eyes do not accuse. Her silence does not threaten. She holds her center as though she were born from the earth itself. And because her presence is steady, his ego begins to soften. His desire, once driven by the hunt, begins to melt into reverence. Yet this is not the story of a woman who loses herself to a man's wounds. To understand his darkness is not to be consumed by it, it is to remain spacious in its presence. She knows that empathy without boundaries becomes erosion. She has learned to love without merging, to care without saving. The moment she begins to carry his pain for him, the sacred balance collapses. Her magic lives in the space between closeness and sovereignty. When she looks at him, she sees both his shadow and her own reflection within it. She recognizes that every human darkness is a mirror, the cruelty he hides, the fear he denies, are patterns she, too, has met within herself. Her compassion comes not from naivete, but from familiarity. She has wrestled with her own demons and discovered that they are not monsters, only exiled children. And because she no longer fears her inner child, the abandoned, neglected, misunderstood parts, she can cradle his inner child with clarity instead of codependence. You, listening now, might wonder, does such understanding make her irresistible because she makes him feel whole? Not quite. The truth is more complex. more sacredly dangerous. When a man feels truly seen, he encounters both ecstasy and terror. Because being seen means being known. And being known means no longer hiding behind performance. Desire, in its rawest form, is the hunger for wholeness. When she embodies wholeness, he tastes in her presence a hint of what individuation might feel like, the Jungian word for becoming one's true self. And that taste is addictive, but if her understanding becomes his addiction, she withdraws, not in cruelty, but in wisdom. For she knows that if she becomes the source of his wholeness, she becomes his captivity. Real love cannot grow inside dependency. So she stays luminous yet untouchable in her center. She allows him to feel the mirror but keeps him accountable to his own journey. Her silence becomes the invitation, face yourself. Bring back what you projected. The dark and the light, own them both. Jung once said that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. The woman who understands this lives by it. She has made peace with her underground. She does not chase only the sunlit parts of life. She knows tenderness and rage are of the same soil. And that knowledge makes her deeply alive. Her humor carries depth, her softness has gravity, her laughter holds an undercurrent of knowing. It is that wholeness, that paradox of fire and calm, that men sense before words ever pass between them. Imagine a moment, a conversation, a glance, a shared stillness. A man feels drawn to a woman whose presence unsettles him in the best way. She doesn't flatter his ego. She doesn't compete for his attention. She sees, and it stirs something deeper than lust. He senses that he could meet God or ruin in her eyes. Both, perhaps. Because she knows, her understanding does not come from instruction manuals of love, it comes from experience, from nights wrestling her own shadows until dawn. She has bled and healed, fallen and risen. So when she meets his anger, she does not recoil. When he withdraws, she does not chase. When he masks pain with intellect, she does not argue the logic, she feels the fear beneath it. This subtle, intuitive seeing bypasses the ego entirely. That is why he feels naked, and strangely safe, in her presence. Do you see now? To understand his darkness is to hold a lantern at the threshold of his soul. Not to guide him like a child, but to stand and witness while he decides whether to enter. If he grows brave enough, love becomes a sacred mirror, each reflecting the other's path to wholeness. If not, her light continues without him. Because her understanding was never a snare, but a gift freely offered, the Stoics would say, no one owns another's peace. Only mastery of one's own soul brings freedom. She knows this instinctively. She can love profoundly and still let go. That's why her love feels different, it does not cling. She could adore him and still walk away, if the bond begins to devour her selfhood. Her worth has roots in stillness, not in validation. Her desire is guided, not enslaved. A man, facing such a woman, often feels both awe and discomfort. He is used to power one through domination or approval, she answers to neither. He cannot manipulate what cannot be seduced by validation. Her yes means everything because it is never born from fear. She does not need him, yet she chooses him. That voluntary surrender is what humbles him most. It redefines power not as control, but as conscious alignment. But what of his own journey? If he chooses to meet her through the shadow rather than the mask, he begins his individuation too. The darkness he feared becomes his teacher. He discovers that the wild impulses he once repressed, his envy, his lust, his grief, are not enemies but signals pointing toward integration. The woman's understanding becomes a mirror to his potential wholeness. She cannot travel his path, but her gaze reminds him it exists. Over time, the dynamic becomes dance, not dependency. He feels what he feared to touch, she rests secure in her integrated light. Together, they create a field of conscious desire, not the hunger to complete, but the joy of sharing completion. She no longer owns his desire through mystery or manipulation, she owns it through resonance. His desire for her mirrors his soul's desire for itself. And that is the kind of passion that endures without devouring. There is extraordinary tenderness in this kind of union. Two beings meeting not to escape themselves, but to find reflection. I see you, and therefore I see me. But even this must be held lightly, because love that clings decays. The woman who understands darkness knows how to release love with the same grace as she receives it. She trusts the rhythm of life more than the permanence of possession. Paradoxically, that detachment makes her presence even more magnetic. The less she grasps, the more the universe leans toward her. Some people will misunderstand such women. They will say she is cold, too independent, too mysterious. But she is none of these things, she is simply free. Her warmth is deep, not desperate. Her mystery is merely the unspoken language of her depths. She does not chase validation because she has met herself beyond the need for it. And the quiet radiance of that freedom reshapes every room she enters. For you, the listener who feels the hum of truth beneath these words, this story is not about gender alone. It is the dance of consciousness and unconsciousness within every soul. The woman is an archetype of understanding, the man an archetype of desire. Each of us carries both within. When the understanding in you meets the desire in you, when your light finally turns to face your shadow, the same alchemy occurs. You own your own desire. Because you understand your own darkness, so ask yourself, have you met the parts of you that you hide from love? Have you forgiven the wildness you tried to silence? Have you sat at the table with your sadness until it told you what it needed? Because only when you hold your own brokenness in compassion can another's darkness stop frightening you. Only then does love become spacious enough to breathe. In the quiet, beyond all philosophies and psychologies, lies a simple truth: the darkness we fear is the same soil from which longing, creativity, and empathy grow. The woman who understands his darkness teaches, by example, that to love fully is to see fully. That desire is not conquered by denial but transformed by awareness. And that real power, feminine or masculine, comes not from control, but from the courage to be conscious. So picture her once more. She walks through the world neither chasing nor retreating. She speaks gently, but every word carries the weight of authenticity. When storms rise, she does not crumble or dominate, she steadies. Her eyes carry the memory of both heaven and hell, and her touch feels like forgiveness. She belongs to no one, yet with her, all feel home. He meets her and thinks he wants to possess her. But what he truly wants is himself, that part of him reflected through her presence that whispers, "You are more than your mask." And when he sees that clearly, the spell breaks, not because desire vanishes, but because it evolves into reverence. That is her secret gift. She awakens love that is free from need, passion that is purified by awareness. In her mirror, desire learns its own depth. Light and shadow, intertwined, bow to one another, and she smiles, knowing the truth that few ever realize, that to understand darkness is not to be consumed by it, but to meet it with gentleness until it transforms into light. Because the woman who understands his darkness does not own him at all, she owns herself, and in that radiant self-possession, all desire bows.